Oh, wow. Yeah. They can't stop us. How you guys doing? So I was going through my emails this morning and I got this email right here. Let me just read it to you guys. It says, your video has been taken down from YouTube. 8th century Roman Jewish relics found in Tucson, Arizona in the 1920s. Real artifacts confirmed. Hi, Kurimeo, how? Due to a copyright takedown notice that we received, we had to take down your video from YouTube, all right? And who took it down? As you guys can see, Daniel Lowe, the author of a book I was reading in the beginning part of this video called Forbidding Histories. I'm not even going to show the book so we don't get another copyright strike. I completely removed the part where we're reading from his book. We don't need his information. It was just more corroboration. And since when do I receive a copyright strike for reading books on my channel? Now, D. Lowe is notorious for doing this. He's not the first time he's done this. He did the exact same thing to 432 The Drop Radio channel. Took down all the videos that he read that book in. He did the same thing to him. So this guy is very evil, has an evil nature. He's a punk, straight up. And I hope he's listening right now. So when I go into my YouTube studio, this is what I see. You know, one copyright strike. So my one strike that I got expires January 31st. Now I got 90 days, right? Now I'm on probation for reading a book, guys. Just for reading a book. Now what I wanted to show you is D-Lowe's personal notes of why he gave me a copyright strike. It says, this is my own personal work and sold on Amazon. More than 30% of the book is narrated in this video. That is false. That is false. I didn't read 30% of your book. I read a couple pages of one of your chapters. That's not 30% of your book, D. And then he says, and it is misrepresented. He's saying that we're misrepresenting his info. Oh, really? What I do know is that I did promote your book, and I bet you a lot of people went and found your book and might have even bought it from Amazon because of me. Or at least they became aware of it, that it exists, and they might think about purchasing it eventually. I was helping you out, Lowe, but you're too evil to see that. You're too greedy. All this stuff you do to us here in this community is going to come back to you hard because you're messing with the wrong people. We're going to tell the truth. This ain't misrepresented. America is the true old world. So again, I took out that part. I'm re-uploading it with the rest of the video that has nothing to do with D-Lowe. So he cannot touch this. All right, YouTube and D-Lowe, you cannot touch this again because I took out your part. Nobody needs your book. All right. I do want to explain to everybody what was in there. It was a part in there that I read specifically because it talked about told Texas and who these swords might belong to. You know, these so-called Roman Jewish Narboni dynasty Europeans supposedly that came over here and left these artifacts here. Luckily for my Patreons, I'm going to upload the original version on my Patreon page. You can't touch that, D. You can't go into my Patreon page and take down videos. So too bad. They're going to still see that. And I'm also going to share the link of the PDF right here in the description of the video in case you guys want it. So you don't have to go buy it. So that's what you get, D. And YouTube, shame on you for taking down videos without even contacting me and letting me know to do something about it, like take out that part, remove it, or anything. They just took it down and gave me a copyright strike for reading a book, guys. So shame on you, YouTube. And I will be disputing this, even though I'm re-uploading a different version. So again, it was just some info there. His opinions of who these people are, which we thought was very interesting. And so we read it. So if you missed that part and you're not a patron, well, I'm sorry. If you do want to see that part and see what was in there and what he took down, make sure to go to my Patreon page and see the original version of that, okay? We're going to get started with the rest of the video that was taken down. So I hope you enjoy at least the newspaper article that we read from the New York Times regarding the Tucson Crosses and artifacts, and confirming this was a real find. The dating that is given is confirmed. This was an actual archaeological find. All right, so let's get into the newspaper now. Wow. All right, I'm in the New York Times. All right, New York Times. Sunday, December 13th, 1925. We're going back in time here. And it says here, puzzling relics dug up in Arizona stir scientists. Purport to chronicle the arrival of Roman Jews there in 775 AD. Serious doubt expressed. Dr. Bashford Dean calls them forgeries. N.M. Judd of the Smithsonian questions date. All right, Smithsonian, right? We got to trust the Smithsonian. Oh, they question it, right? Of course they do. Crosses and crescents. Finds bear many Latin and Hebrew inscriptions and Masonic emblems. All right, guys, so these so-called Roman Jews, who's the real Romans? People of the promise, Romani, Romans. Who's the real Romans? That's what I'm telling you. Special to the New York Times, Tucson, Arizona, December 12th. After investigation by a number of scientists, first announcement was made here today, the excavation near Tucson of a cast-lead sword, crosses and other objects bearing Latin and Hebrew inscriptions which, taken at their face value, are held to mean that Roman Jews crossed the Atlantic in the Dark Ages, penetrated to Arizona, and founded a kingdom which lasted from about 760 AD to 900 AD, all right, almost 200 years. So who's the Romans? What if they're just coming from the Northeast? So again, a number of scientists saying a hoax. A number of scientists had already concluded it was a legit find. The cast symbols and the engravings on them include crosses and crescents, a 7-branch candlestick, and certain Masonic-like representations. Opinions of scientists vary as to the authenticity of the objects. Nell Merton Judd, curator of American archaeology at the United States National Museum, said he believed that no hoax or fraud was involved, but he thought the date later than that of the Spanish conquest of 1540 AD. All right, so he's saying they're not hoaxes, this guy, right? From the American Archaeology of the United States National Museum, right? This guy, Mr. Judd. He's saying, yo, they're not fake, they're actually real. They're not fake, but I don't think they're older than 1540. Again, he's just thinking, it says, but he thought, again, scientists already had gone and confirmed this, real scientists. That's their field, but he's got to stay in his field, right? Dr. Byron Cummins, professor of archaeology at the University of Arizona, vouched for the reliability of the discoverers of the objects, which he said showed Jewish and Christian influence and bear dates of 760 to 900 AD. On the other hand, Dr. Bashford Dean, curator of arms and armor of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, when consulted about the excavations, branded the objects as crude and childish forgeries. All right? He ain't trying to go because it doesn't go with his agenda. The first object to be found was a large metal cross, which was discovered by Charles E. Manier of Tucson, embedded in a limestone formation 5 feet inches below the surface of the land, near an old lime kiln. Further digging by Mr. Manier and Thomas W. Bent uncovered the other objects. Analysis showed that they were made with lead mixed with antimony, silver, and some tin. This was described by Professor Cummins as a natural alloy. Continues as noted scientists examine objects. The objects and site have been examined by Professor A.E. Douglas, noted astronomer and chronologist of the Lowell Observatory, Professor Frank H. Fowler of the College of Letters, Arts and Sciences of the University of Arizona, Dr. C.J. Sadia, a geologist, Professor Cummins, Neil H. Judd, and others. Descriptions of the objects and the text of the inscriptions have been sent to scholars in many parts of the country. The combination of Christian cross, Muslim crescent, Hebraic 7-branch candlestick, and Freemasonry emblems has imposed a heavy tax on the credulity of the investigators, but their appearance of having been covered and embedded in stone by natural processes has puzzled skilled archaeologists. Some have arrived at the opinion that whatever their origin, the objects lay for centuries in the earth where they were found. They were there for centuries. The inscriptions have been interpreted as describing the conflicts of the prehistoric Roman Jewish kingdom in the southwest with the Toltec Indians. You hear this? Roman Jewish kingdom, Hellenistic Jews, huh? Against the Toltexus, against the Toltec Indians, forerunners of the Aztecs. They were pre-Aztec. People were there, the Toltecs, the architects. From the inscription, it has been deduced that the mysterious invaders called their land Kalalus. Kalalus, using the text as a basis for the work, all right? Remember, Kalalus means promised land, America. Using the text as basis for the work, Laura Coleman Ostrander, historian of the Tucson, has sketched the history of rulers of Kalalus. Her dynasty consisted of Theodorus, Jacobus, Israel the First, and Israel the Second. All right, she did trace that these are real historic genealogies. Some scholars to whom the materials have been submitted have been slow to accept the finds as authentic. All right, because they see all this, they're like, no, it can't be. It can't be. America's the new world. It can't be. That's the hijack with all these gatekeepers, right? They don't want to find it authentic because of the character of the objects and the frequency of archaeological frauds, the danger of endorsing another Cardiff giant or a monument of the Bill Stumps Hismark type has generally caused investigators to be cautioned, but it is alleged that those who have examined the site have come to the conclusion that the things were not planted as a hoax. All right, it's not a hoax, but have been there for a considerable period of time. They were found in September 1924, 15 months ago, a longer period than any motion picture press agent, as a rule, would allow for the incubation of a publicity dodge. Again, they have the image here. You see the writing on these crosses. All right, and then you see this one right here. Britannia, Theodorus, all right, Israel. Look at that. Finder's story of the case. This is a statement of the case in favor of the relics as worked out by the finders and their co-workers follows. A chance discovery by Charles E. Manier and subsequent excavation by him and Thomas W. Bent near Tucson, Arizona, has brought to light many relics that indicate an expedition of considerable proportion of Roman Jews in America during the period from 775 AD to 900 AD. The evidence unearthed appears to be the positive data for which scientists have been searching for many years. It is thought that these relics definitely establish the fact that Europeans or other outside influence existed in America before the advent of Columbus and the Spanish conquerors. This influence was found in America among the Indians in their rites and ceremonies by the Spaniards, all right? All right, it was already being practiced by the Indians, but again, this is the true old world. That's the thing they're missing here. Nobody had to come here to teach that. These are the original people practicing the stuff that they copied. But until the present, no definite evidence has appeared to prove this theory. The first article, a large metal cross weighing 65 youngs, was discovered on September 13, 1924, purely by accident. Mr. Manier and his family were returning from a trip to the historic Picture Rocks just north of Tucson, Arizona, and had stopped to examine an old lime kiln along the road. While doing this, Mr. J. E. Manier noticed a peculiar object protruding from the bank to the north of the lime kiln. On examining the object, he discovered it to be of metal and firmly embedded in the bank 5 feet inches from the top. Mr. Manier excavated the object and discovered that it was a large metal cross, consisting of 2 parts, that had been placed together and riveted with lead rivets. Between 2 halves had been placed a wax preservative, and on the inner surfaces of both halves there was much Latin inscription. The cross was taken to the University of Arizona, and the Latin translated by Professor Frank H. Fowler of the College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences. All right, they translated it. Nobody's just guessing what it's saying. You know what we were reading in the book previously? That's what it actually said. Objects embedded in strata. Since the discovery of the first article to the present time, there have been unearthed 5 complete crosses and 1 unfinished cross, all of which contain much Latin inscription. Many pictures and numerous symbols of both a religious and historic nature. There has also been unearthed a cross with a crescent crossed arm, entwined with a serpent upon which there is a Hebrew script and many religious symbols. Another cross has a circle of metal, connecting the cross arms with a serpent entwined overall. This cross also contains the Hebrew script and several religious symbols. The remainder of the discovery is made up of swords and spears, many of which are scarred as a result of having been used in battle. All the articles are of metal and of all natural alloy of lead, silver, gold, and antimony, with a trade of tin, and are all in a perfect state of preservation. None of the inscriptions has been obliterated, and the war implements still retain a sharp, straight edge and are well balanced. The articles have all been found at about the same level, that is, between 5 and 6 feet below the surface, and in a well-cemented stratum of caliche. That caliche or lime formation being so hard that it has been necessary to chop each piece out with a pick. There is no evidence of burial either in recent or in historic times. All right, nobody buried this, is not a hoax. In fact, the articles have been covered by a natural process of the washing down of the debris from above until time has resulted in building up of from 5 to 6 feet of overhead. There are many scientists who have assisted in the research are unanimous in the opinion that the covering over process has taken many hundreds of years, many hundreds of years. In fact, their conclusions tend to place this age of the relics at about the 8th century. You see that many scientists, so that's the hijack with all these people saying it's a hoax. Of course they're going to tell you it's a hoax and hide it from you. This is the true old world. That's what it proves. The placing of the articles in history is being done by Laura Coleman Ostrander, historian of Tucson, Arizona. She has, through the Latin and Hebrew inscriptions and many interesting symbols, woven a complete story covering the entire period of these people in America, or Kalelu's land, the promised land. All right, America. All right, understand that, overstand that. This is the true old world. Right? This is New York Times. They're telling you, as they called it, it is a story that covers a period of 125 years and is replete with hardships, wars, and romance. Fought the Toltec Indians, all right? They fought the Toltec Indians. The story commences in AD 775 with these people being carried forth over the sea to Roman Kaleilos, an unknown land. All right, Roman Kaleidos, the promised land, an unknown land. Here they found a people. They didn't know this land, but they found people there, right? Here they found a people whom they called the Toltexus. Toltexus. The scientists agreeing that the people they found were the Toltec Indians. At this period, Theodorus was the ruler of these European adventurers and was a brave fighter and a man of courage. He carried on much warfare with the Toltecs, and after ruling for a period of 14 years, he was succeeded by Jacobus. Jacobus ruled the people with a mighty hand and was also a constructive ruler, since he rebuilt the city of these people that had been razed during the latter part of the reign of Theodorus. Jacobus was not king long and was followed by Israel I, who reigned for 60 years, who in turn was followed by Israel II. He ruled 6 years. Thus the story continues on until the year 900 and is chronologically complete through the entire period of their existence in America. The records found by Mr. Manier and Mr. Ben appear to be a last record of the people, written in haste at the time when the end was approaching. The record does not make clear just what the end was. The end was coming. Another reset. The end was coming. They don't know what they mean, though. We don't know what that means. But it has been concluded that these Europeans were exterminated by the natives, who it appears harassed them and made war upon them from the beginning to the end. This conclusion has been drawn since what appears to be the last writing of the recorder of the ancient deeds states, "The last days have come, and the inevitable doom." And his last writing is, "I am present, the Lord be with you." To this chapter of the story is signed OL, as well as to all of the other parts of the process, the OL being not his initials, or rather an insignia of rank, evidences of authenticity. The investigation and excavation is only in the embryo stage and is to be carried on to completion in the future. However, much definite information has been brought to light that establishes these relics as being several hundred years pre-Columbian. C.J. Sarley, Ph.D., one of the eminent geologists of the Southwest, who has spent much time during the last year in investigating this find, is of the belief that the articles are not only genuine, but are as old as the dates would indicate, okay? He's a geologist, he knows. He has established this belief through the geological facts and through the location at their respective depths of the numerous Indian cultures, the oldest being that of the Hohokums, or the great unknown tribe of Indians that inhabited the Southwest in prehistoric times, all right, the Pueblo people. The veneer of the Hohokum culture is a considerable distance above the level at which these relics are being excavated. Dean Byron Cummins, curator of the State Museum, archaeologist and a member of the faculty of the University of Arizona, who has also investigated this problem, is convinced as to the antiquity of the finds and as to the articles being genuine. He establishes the age of the relics through the Roman script contained upon them, which he states has not been in common use since the 8th century. You guys hear that? So they're like, yo, this writing can't even be a hoax because nobody even knew this to write this since the 8th century, all right, according to their chronologies, right? They got to go with their chronologies. They're like, yo, that's writing is from the 8th century and has not been in common use since the 8th century and through archaeological and geological evidence, okay? Both of them. In this, he is supported by Professor Frank H. Fowler, who has translated all of the Latin inscriptions on the pieces found to date. All right, before we continue, here goes another one. Just want to go ahead and show you guys this. There's just what they're showing here in this newspaper to everybody. In 1925, look at this one with the snake going around, just like Moses and the brass serpent. And then check this out, snake, and look at the symbol, like the Druids and all that. You know, this symbol's deep. Remember the emblem of the Garden of Eden or the Four Rivers. Professor Charles T. Voorhees, etymologist, who has also interested himself in this investigation and has assisted with the photographic record, is firm in his belief that these relics are not of his historic times, are many hundreds years old, that there has been no burial of them and there is no evidence of burial, but that the articles have been covered over to a depth of between 5 and 6 feet by a natural building up process over a long period of time. Dean A.E. Douglas of the Stewart Observatory and Vice President of the Historical and Archaeological Society of Arizona is firm in the belief of the antiquity and the genuineness of the finds. All right, you guys hear that? All these scientists, real people. He has spent much time on the investigation, has taken a complete photographic record, and has himself excavated part of the relics. All right, he knows. You see who did that? He found it. Dr. Jude aids an excavation. Dr. Neil Jude of the Smithsonian Institution visited the excavation and completely excavated 2 of the articles himself. He stated that the articles were very old and that there was absolutely no evidence of disturbance of the earth surrounding them. He reached his conclusion after chopping these 2 pieces loose with a miner's pick. All of these men have either excavated some of the finds themselves or have been present when relics were excavated. The time at which the story of these crusaders relates their history definitely establishes the period during which they inhabited America, and is supported by the 8th century Latin script that is used in the inscriptions. The place from which they came has been established by Laura Coleman Ostrander as the Roman Empire, since they call the unknown land Roman Calalus. Again, this is guy saying this from the Smithsonian, right? He's saying this. He's confirming. They were designated by her as Roman Jews because of the appearance of the Hebrew script of the early centuries upon the religious standards, and because of the nature and significance of drawings and symbols appearing upon them. Also because of the fact that the traders of the Roman Empire during the first Christian centuries were the Jews.
The excavation investigation has been carried on by Messrs. Charles E. Manier and Thomas W. Bent with the assistance of John S. Bent and the support of the University of Arizona, the Tucson Chamber of Commerce, and the city of Tucson. All of the photography for publication is being done by the Irwin Studios of Tucson, Arizona. All right, you guys hear all these people involved, but they never told us about this in school, right? They never even told us, right? They actually confirmed this was real. This is an announcement and should not be taken as a conclusion, since future excavation will no doubt bring to light much more evidence of startling and interesting nature, and as the new evidence is brought to light, a report of the process will be made. All right, again, that was the guy from the Smithsonian Institute, Dr. Neil Judd. So even they are confirming it. And it says here, translation of inscription. The inscription of a cross designated as LA or IA is translated as follows. AD 800. We are carried forth over the sea to Kalalus, an unknown land, to a people ruling widely, the Toltexos Sylvanus, where led over Theodorus brings up his forces at the city Rhoda, and more than 700 are captured. No gold shall be taken from the city. Theodorus, a man of great courage, rules 14 years. James rules 6 years. With God's help, nothing need to be feared in the name of Israel. All right, so we read this earlier, and then it goes over the chronology of the supposed dynasties of Kalalus, and we went over that as well. It says here, a brief inscription which bears no signature refers briefly to the transatlantic voyage of the Dark Age Arizonians as follows. We are carried over the sea to Roman Kalalus, all right, America, an unknown land. They came in the year 775. Theodorus ruled the people. All right, so now we're going to read the hijacks, all right, the people, the gatekeepers. This is what they're going to say, all right? We're going to read their point of view too, if it makes sense, right? Now it says here, declared crude forgeries. Again, we just went over everybody who already said it's real, the people who actually went and dug it. Even a Smithsonian Institute agent, he dug 2 of them. He said, yeah, this is old. Nobody buried this here recently. But let's hear what Dr. Dean Bashford Dean says. It says, curator of arms and armor of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. All right, so he's not a geologist. He didn't go to the site to dig them up. He just received them and looked at them. So let's see what he's going to say. It says, who has made a lifelong study of forgeries as incidental to his study of armor. All right, only for armor. Said yesterday, after examining photographs of the Tucson objects, that they would rank among the poorest of forgeries. Dr. Dean has collected materials for publication on 160 cases of arms and armor forgers. So what do those 160 cases have to do with these that was already declared by every other scientist there in Arizona as real? And they were there during the excavation. He wasn't. The Arizona specimens are modern forgeries, probably local and certainly without either interest or value. All right, so he's just talking. They already said nobody buried that recently. They knew from the geology. They knew they were the excavators. These were scientists. They already declared that. So all he's saying here, it just cancels out. Any student forger should know that the imprints of a sharp instrument, as shown in Figure 14, are absolutely fresh. While these have been given as, so he's just looking at the object. He's like, these are fake. He wasn't there again. Scientists already declared that these were not buried recently. He says the cutting shown on the back of the figure 1A bears the marks of being put there ad hoc. So he's just guessing. It looks like it bears the. It looks like, I'm looking at a picture. The form shown in Figure 21 is a crude reminiscence of Turkish standard head, which the forger has evidently seen in some picture. The form of the letters is not accurate archaeology. The blurring of the edges of the crosses, Figure 1A, has no other meaning save the effort of the forger to make the object appear old. An authentic object has an utterly different feeling. It doesn't feel right to him. Do you guys see what he's going off? I just want you to point out, scientists already declared the geology. They were there in the excavation. All right, so I'm done here. In his opinion, it's kind of silly. Let's see what else is here. Who else has an opinion? So continue, it says, likened to recent fakes, W.F. Hodge tells of hoaxes in southwestern Michigan. W.F. Hodge, specialist in the archaeology and history of the Southwest of the Museum of the American Indian Heritage Foundation, said yesterday that fake inscriptions of Coronado and Fray Marcos de Niza had recently been discovered in Arizona. It seems very probable, he said, that this archaeological faker who has been at work in Arizona has had something to do with the finds near Tucson. All right, so now because they found forgeries somewhere else, they're saying, so you see, they have nothing. I just wanted to show you guys this article, which basically shows you they have nothing, right? Of the armor guy and this other guy who found fakes somewhere else that has nothing to do with the finds, the excavation, again, that people did. Do I have to go back? You know, we read already the scientists, what they determined, evidences of authenticity. All right, PhD. Dean Bryson Cummins, curator of the State Museum, archaeologist, and a member of the faculty of the University of Arizona. Okay, like Frank H. Fowler. He translated the words, okay? Professor Charles T. Voorhees, entomologist. Dean E. Douglas of the Stewart Observatory and vice president of the Historical and Archaeological Society of Arizona, and firm belief of the antiquity and the genuineness of the finds. All right, so dodge the hijack. All right, guys, they found these objects in Arizona. They're from the 8th century. Yeah, the true old world, according to their, carbon dating test, right? But still, they got to go with their own carbon dating test if they're going to use it for everything else. All right, so just because it doesn't fit their lies, right? Their Columbus, manifest destiny, doctrine of discovery, they're going to say, oh, that's a hoax because look, that's such a good copy. Look, he even drew heads. So what? What are you saying? You weren't at the excavation. They already told you nobody buried that there recently. The geology tells you, it proves it. This is the New York Times. They told you, they confirmed it in 1925. The Tucson Crosses artifacts, so-called Roman Jews, Hellenized Jews, Toltexus Solomon the Builder. All right, the true old world. I'm at DNAconsultants.com. It says here, Tucson artifact story verified by archaeology. All right, it's already verified by archaeology. It's real. It says here, an April 10 article by Tara McIsaac in the Epic Times, Tucson artifacts suggest Romans made it to the New World in 8th century, is the latest in an emerging portfolio of proof that the conventional history of the Americas is fundamentally flawed. All right, we've been saying that for some years now, guys, right? And well, just wrong. At the center of the case for old world contact before Columbus is a treasure trove of lead artifacts excavated under the nose of the University of Arizona in the 1920s, but largely dismissed as elaborate hoaxes since that time. All right, so even though at first they already had confirmed it, this is just like the Calavera skull and all these other things they find that they already had verified, and then with time will come out, well, those were a hoax. People start making that news, fake news, huh? Known as the Tucson Crosses or Silver Bell artifacts, after the site of an ancient lime kiln on Silver Bell Road where they were found. These objects have been in Arizona Historical Society Southern Division Museum collection since 1994, when they were donated to the Tucson organization by Thomas W. Bent Jr., the son of the pioneer figure by the same name who homesteaded the site and devoted his life to preserving the strange relics. Thomas W. Bent Sr. died in 1972 without living to see artifacts vindicated or even housed in a worthy public institution. He refused to give the artifacts to the University of Arizona or Arizona State Museum because experts such as Emil Horry dismissed them as fakes. A thorough scholarly monograph by Cyclone Covey, a Wake Forest University classics professor, appeared in 1975, but an official reopening of the find site by Wake Forest archaeologists was called off at the last moment due to back channel pressure from the University of Arizona officials, all right, gatekeepers. All right, they didn't want to give it to the university because they knew they were going to just try to hide it. All right, so yeah, America's the true old world. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for tuning in. Much love and respect. Pura vida. Toltexus, yeah, Toltexus. Hawa.